Roger Wallace in from Austin, Texas, joining us. We have lots to talk about with basketball and then also with baseball as the spring sports have now opened up fully. We'll start with men's basketball. They were on a roll towards the end of last week. You warned us, though, like this is a team that, hey, let's not rest on our laurels here, even though things were looking up. And then they went to Georgia and ran to a red-hot Georgia Bulldogs basketball team. Just it feels like you kind of had an understanding that this could happen. Now that it has happened, what are your overall thoughts about where this team is?
Well, and Sean Miller said we've got to be a better defensive team to progress, and they weren't. They gave up 91. Georgia shot 60%. They had over 50% from three. They didn't shoot a particularly large number of free throws, which has played Texas. Now, Texas came back. They were down 18. They tied it at 67, and then Georgia went on a late run, and that was that. And to me, the bigger picture, that was a loss that, they probably felt once they climbed that hill and got back, maybe they could steal that sixth straight. Now, guys, they're looking at a stretch with Florida Wednesday, at A&M Saturday, and at Arkansas next week. All of a sudden, you could be coming home to Oklahoma in your regular season finale on the other side of this thing after 5 straight wins. I mean, would you guys be surprised if they lost all 3 of these next games?
Not at all.
Yeah. So more so, where do they find a win or two? Obviously, if they could, get a big night at home at Moody on Wednesday against Florida, that would be a huge resume builder. But Saturday's going to be a snake pit. Now, A&M is, Texas played well on the road, so I'm not saying they can't do it. But you go from feeling one way last week after that LSU loss, and I guess maybe we saw a little bit of the problem starting with LSU when they blew the 16-point lead and then kind of had to hang on, and here they are. So as I've said all year long, margin for error is small. Defense is just not great. They don't turn teams over. So when you have a Tremont Mark scoring only 4 points, they needed somebody else to step up, and it didn't happen.
You came on the show last week, and you were cautiously optimistic about this team. We saw a little bit of that maybe Sean Miller pessimism in regards to the LSU game, giving up 85 to LSU. That kind of sounded the alarm bells in my head. And then we saw the Georgia game where Georgia shot 60% from the field. Just how badly does this loss hurt their chances of making the NCAA tournament?
I think they're in pretty good shape. I'm going to say they're going to get one more win out of 4. That puts them at 500 in conference play. And they've got some pretty good wins. They've got good road wins. Now, if the committee looks at the finish and they don't weigh everything equally and they do end up losing 3 of 5, 4 of 5, or something like that, then all of a sudden maybe Dayton comes back into play, depending on what else happens. But right now, they're not even, on the bubble. So none of these losses would be bad, but you just, potentially 4 straight. And again, that's assuming they can beat Oklahoma in their regular season finale. So it could get to that point. If we're sitting here a week from, Wednesday, and all of a sudden, they've lost a few in a row, then all of a sudden the conversation becomes a little different. But that's what we do, right? It's every game is a referendum until the next game.
Yeah, I think right now the hottest team in college basketball probably is the Florida Gators. If there is a path to victory, what do you think it is coming up on Tuesday?
They got to be lights out. They got to. I mean, Florida's big, and Texas lacks some punch inside. Traore hasn't played the last few games, so now you're talking about Vokatitis, who had a big game against Georgia. Nick Cody's played sparingly, but he's had to step up. Florida's so big. I don't know how Texas can slow them down on the front line, but they've got to, they got to hit 15 threes, and they got to stay out of foul trouble, and the margin is pretty small. Now it's a home game. They get hot like they did against LSU in that first half and get on a roll, and the crowd gets in it. And, Florida's not invincible, certainly, but it can be done. College basketball, we see it every night, we see it every week, but they're gonna have to shoot lights out. And Sean Miller says, we're just not a good enough defensive team that we can lock teams down. So they're going to have to probably score in the high 80s or 90s to win on Wednesday.
I mean, it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility. I've been saying Moody Center, some crazy stuff does happen there all year.
It is a 6 o'clock start, and if you're familiar with Austin traffic, that's not ideal to get that place packed.
It's a late arriving crowd.
Before a 6 o'clock tip.
Yeah.
Well, if you've got late classes, the students aren't going to care. They're not going to go to class. They'll just go
the students can get there. I'm talking about
general fans,
the paying customers, if you will.
Right. But speaking about this game, obviously you've got the other 3 games to end the year, but just from a hypothetical standpoint, with how good Florida has been playing as of late, if Texas wins this one, are they basically already a lock to make the tournament and it doesn't really matter what happens in those final 3 games?
I would think. Again, like I said, that gets you to 500.
Yeah.
And I mean, they made it with 6 last year. Yeah. Now, the SEC was way different last year.
For sure.
Than this year, but there you see the closing stretch, and man, that's a tough closing stretch, and it looked a lot tougher, and then Oklahoma kind of became what they are, which is not as good as we thought, but A&M beat them here, they got a big bounce back win, and so Arkansas is going to be a tough place to play. They, as Sark said, Arkansas hates Texas more than they like themselves. Maybe that's not so true in 2026, but that place is going to be something else when Texas goes in there. So, I mean, and then you got the SEC tournament and what happens there. Before Saturday, I don't know now if it's realistic they could get the double bye, but they were in that fight, for the double bye. But there's so many teams. You could go from the double bye to, not even getting a bye.
Right.
Depending on how the cards fall. So we'll see how it plays out. But I think if they beat Florida, that would be such a big win, and you get to 500 in the conference guaranteed. I think they're in the field.
And keep in mind who Florida's playing this weekend. They're playing Arkansas, so you never know if there's a little bit of that look-ahead factor.
Yeah, maybe to get before that matchup before Texas.
Texas doesn't want to hear that they're the team that you're looking
I know,
for.
right? They're not used to being in that position. not even a little bit.
Though.
Absolutely.